Hey, little girl, are you looking for hope in a world that has lied to you about who you really are? Grown woman, holding in story she needs to tell what God really wants you to do in this world. In his name, hope to break free from the shackles and the lies.
Welcome back to Staci Speaks Hope. Today, I want to remind you, some patterns that we live don't start in adulthood. They start in survival. In today's conversation, you'll hear Oriana Holmes as she explores why trauma normalizes what hurts, how attachment styles shape who we're drawn to, and what it takes to move from survival to self-trust. If you've ever wondered why certain relationships feel familiar, even when they're hurtful, this episode may give you some clarity. And once you hear it, you'll probably want to go back to hear part one, where this whole conversation began.
And I go back now that I'm in this work, now
Yeah.
that I am a domestic violence expert. And when I say there has to be so much training and counseling
Yes.
involved in that process as a survivor doing this work,
Mm.
it is absolutely imperative to make sure that I don't make my situation your situation.
Yeah.
That I don't, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there has to be so much training and so much counseling that has to happen to be able to effectively help people without harming people and making it about me and my story. And so now that I'm in this work and I've been in this field for, almost a decade now, I look at the lethality assessments that we do, the danger assessments that we do.
Mhm.
And those assessments, based on the answers to your questions, tells you how likely it is that your partner's going to kill you. And I would have screened high danger.
Wow.
And I never sought services, never once, never called the police, never went to the Y or any other place to get any services. And I feel like there's so many people who don't.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the obvious question. Why didn't you?
Why do I always ask that question? No, it's a valid question. It's a valid question because we ask ourselves that as survivors.
And not in a shame kind of way, but in a curiosity kind of way. What was going on in your mind? Again, we're talking about your little girl.
Exactly. So there was a lot. There was a lot of reasons. I would say there was. I really thought I loved him. He had his own trauma, from his childhood, and so there's a lot of trauma bonding, right? And people hold on to things. I think it was also that I had the expectation that this is just how relationships are, right? But I didn't reach out for services because first of all, I didn't know about any services.
Yeah.
I didn't even recognize that I was in something that needed or required services.
Oh.
And then as far as law enforcement, and this is something that I've trained on law enforcement. I've trained law enforcement over my career. And this is one of the things that I always told them. I said, I remember my abuser holding a loaded gun to my head and telling me I can kill you where you stand, and the cops wouldn't care because you would be another dead N-word.
Wow.
And I believed him. And I had an officer ask me, much like you did, why did you believe him? And I said, because we don't have good relationships with law enforcement.
Right.
That's number one. Right. That's number one. But
again, not feeling safe.
Exactly.
Don't feel safe in this system.
Exactly. They're not here to protect me. It's not who they're protecting and serving. So that was my thought, right? Now, obviously, in doing this work, and I really do believe somebody that made this comment that if you don't like law enforcement, then you shouldn't be training law enforcement,
Mm.
right? So I agree with that, and um, there's a lot of training that goes along with that as well, right?
Train the
Uh,
trainer, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But even in that, the systems are still the systems, the failures are still the failures, right? So it doesn't make it any less true that there are these real barriers to seeking help. So yeah, I never reached out for services because I didn't recognize that there was something that needed to be, it
Yeah.
it's amazing to me how compounded trauma makes things normalized.
Sound check. This is Staci Speaks Hope. If you saw anything in this episode today that touched your heart, that Oriana said, if you've been that woman who's in need of help, take a moment to listen to your little girl, to ask her what she needs to know that she's fit, loved. If you need help finding out how to hear from her, take the Little Girl Games quiz, 7 quick questions that ask you about your past and your present that can help you identify some of your patterns that show up in your life today. I'll drop the link. Be blessed. Again.
Um, just an example that's not even violence related. I remember at one point, in our household, there was something wrong with our bathroom sink, and so we were ended up having to wash our hands in the bathtub. Right? We turn on the bathtub and we wash our hands, whatever. Didn't think about it. It became normal in my house for a certain period of time. I go to my best friend's apartment. We're getting ready for dinner that she made, and I come out of the bathroom and she said, "Did you take a bath?" Like,
He turned on
no,
the stove.
I turned on the tub and washed my hands because that's what I've been doing for so long.
Right.
That's muscle memory. That's just
Right.
so that's what trauma does.
In my workbook, I talk about these lies that become the truth.
That's
And that's
so
the process of normalizing that which is not true until it actually appears to be true.
exactly
Because you don't
100%.
know it any other way. You've replaced the actual truth with
Right.
this alternate reality.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you do it, the more you experience it, the more it happens to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, of course. I'm gonna get in a
Yeah.
relationship and he's gonna hit me.
Mm-hmm. But
Only
I'm gonna hit him
difference
back.
is I'm gonna hit you back.
Exactly.
Instead of,
And then maybe
yeah,
and then maybe
he's
you
not
won't
gonna
hit me.
hit me. Doesn't even
Right.
cross my mind.
Didn't
If
even
that
cross.
doesn't, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, imagine being, you know, well into your 20s, 30s before that dawns on you. Um, so yeah, it's been interesting and relationships following that, I haven't been in a physically abusive relationship since that one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that was definitely enough.
Yes.
um, but I have been in relationships where there has been, emotional abuse and control and jealousy and all the things. And those are still tactics of power and control. And one of the things that's most important about like the lethality and screens and the danger assessments is that most of the questions don't even have to do with physical violence. It
Right.
has to do with controlling, stalking, and jealous behaviors.
I actually taught teen parents that were 17 to 21
Oh,
and
wow.
that were moms, mini moms,
Mhm.
layers deep in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh. And one of the things that we learned in preparing them is because the precursors to violence are isolating you from your family, making you believe you don't have anybody you can trust but them. And so now
Mhm.
that they become your world and you can't be around, no, can't, not the friends, not the family. I don't want them in our business, da 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 da. And so that mental control starts
Yes.
before they ever lay a hand on you.
Exactly. The
And to
foundation is
these
right.
young girls, because now they believe it. That,
Hmm.
that that seed is planted, watered, and starting to bloom. Now I
Absolutely.
got you. Because
Hmm.
nobody's gonna want to talk to you now because you've cut them off because you were with me. I was my man.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's so, that's part of why I'm glad that you said that, because, I have a program that I developed for young people that, again, is self-awareness based, right? Now, we do talk about the red flag behaviors and the green flag behaviors, but we talk a lot about self-awareness. We talk about, what are you attracted to? Okay,
Mm.
I know what you say you're attracted to, but what are you really attracted to? and and is what you're attracted to healthy, right? Or is it just
Oh,
something that's
bad
normalized?
boy image and all of that stuff.
Exactly. We talk about what your attachment style is. I think that had a huge bearing on me being able to understand my little girl and the behaviors that she adopted, that I tried to carry into adulthood, that just doesn't work,
Yes. Say more
right?
about that. You expound on that because that's a key element that you just brought
Look, Stacy, I absolutely am obsessed with attachment styles. Um, I a lot of times when I do something for self-development, I often look at it from the standpoint of, I wonder if this would be helpful for survivors, for other survivors, right?
up. Hmm.
And it's not just that I feel like because it worked for me, it's going to work for everybody, but I know that there are a lot of people who have experienced the same types of trauma, may not have experienced it the same way.
Hmm.
Uh, Obviously haven't, because we're different people, but this did help for me. Maybe it'll help somebody else. So I just came across something on Facebook about attachment styles, and I was like, you know what? This would probably be really good to be able to answer those questions of, why do I keep getting attracted to the same type of person?
How would
Because
you
I get
define attachment styles for someone who doesn't know? And
so the attachment styles are formed in early childhood development. These are the set of beliefs and things that develop based on the caregiving that you receive from a very young age, and they develop early, and they're kind of solidified by a certain age. I think maybe 7, right?
Mhm.
Um, and at that point, based on what type of caregiving you received, it influenced not only how you receive love and perceive love, but also how you give it and what your expectations are of it in adulthood and interpersonal relationships, but especially in romantic relationships. And so there are, 4 attachment styles. One is secure, the other 3 are insecure attachments, and secure is the goal,
Right.
right? Secure is definitely what people should aspire to if they're not, and try to maintain if they are. Um, and the insecure attachments, which are the anxious, preoccupied, which is what I am, and then you have the avoidance. You've got disorganized, and you've got fearful. And so with those attachment styles, it depends on what your caregiving was. The interesting part about anxious attachment, which is what I am, is that it's often characterized by caregiving that was inconsistent.
Hmm. Sure, that
And,
makes.
and inconsistent in a way that, especially in households that involve domestic abuse, mom's not able to give. And I'm using the example as far as mom being the victim and dad being, or the intimate partner being male, because statistically speaking, that's still accurate, right? That's still, 75 or so percent are women. So, mom's not able to do the type of caregiving and nurturing that
Mhm.
she may even want to do, because everything revolves around this abuser,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I may get attention, I may not. I may get your undivided, I may not. I may get love and encourage, I may not. And so that becomes a very you clamor for it when you do receive it. And that's what makes us clingy, right? And so it was very interesting. And then especially when it comes to the dynamic between the anxious attachment and some of the avoidance styles, right? It, there's this push and pull dynamic. Anxious is like, give me all the attention and no, let's talk about this because I need to feel safe
Right.
that the relationship is not ending because you didn't respond to my text in 2 minutes.
Right. Right.
And avoidant is like, you're doing too much. Right. And they want, connection, and they want love, but it also feels like they're going to lose their sense of self, right? And so they kind of run from getting too close. So there's this chasing dynamic going on.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that with my framework, the framework that I created, the Empowered and in Control framework, is kind of a positive inversion to the power and control wheel, which is what we use in domestic violence advocacy. It shows a pattern of abusive behaviors that take your power and control away. The Empowered and in Control wheel shows a pattern of positive behaviors that you can use to get your power and control back. And so some of what I like to do through my framework is play games because I'm fun. And so and it's, it helps people learn to play games and things like that. And so I love that. I like being able to use games to be able to illustrate some of those things about attachment styles and attraction and positive affirmations and all of those things. So, yep.
And again, such an alignment with the way we're responding to these things, because it's the patterns and it's the replacement of patterns. Of course, you feel destabilized when you can't tell what's going to happen next. And if that becomes your norm as a child, am I going to be loved or am I not? Am I good today? Am I bad today? When I've done the same thing every day, how destabilizing that is for your identity. And to get back to that by way of claiming that energy back, claiming that power back, as you said, that energy, but power.
Yes.
And that is what we want to teach women to do through our various aspects of this work.
Absolutely.
For the women that are listening, for them, even the men. Yes, you acknowledge 25%, but there's men also in this place. And there's little boys and little girls that went through a life that set them on a path, that planted the seed that violence in relationship is normal, acceptable, to be expected even.
Right.
What would you say to them? Because the self-awareness, do you tie that to the little girl? And how can they start that path and give them some hope?
Yeah. Well, there is hope to be had, and there's definitely healing to be had. And, the feeling on the other side is just amazing, which is part of why I wanted to do this work. Like, I could have continued on in emergency services and direct services for emergency situations, but that doesn't address, once you're out of that abusive relationship, but you get into another with someone else, it doesn't address what happens in between and what those root causes were. So a lot of what I recommend that people do to start is really getting, I'm a big fan of counseling. I understand that not everybody, that's not everybody's jam, and that's okay. But even if you're not going to get into counseling, getting into some sort of mentoring, some sort of services, coaching services that will pour into you and have you kind of examine some of those things, some of those core beliefs that are not true, and some of the behaviors that come from those core beliefs that we can change, that we can redirect. So that's a good first step, is to, like I said, self-awareness is the key, because you can't change, your outcome if you don't look at the behaviors that are causing the same thing that you're getting.
Yes. And the beauty of that is not about dwelling in the past.
Right.
You're looking for what's that common thread, because I'm here.
Right.
I'm the common thread, and I'm present.
Right.
What is in me from the foundations of my identity and my
Right.
perception of who I am, my expectation of what I deserve, what I want, what's okay and what's not okay, just on a very basic level
Right.
that
Right.
continues to show up. So, and I really make it a point. I'm not a therapist, but in my coaching, I make it a point to mention it's not
Hmm.
about revisiting the pains of the past to the degree that you stay there.
Right.
It is to
Right.
get to the degree of what impact did that have on you that you
Hmm.
carry in
Yeah.
you, with you, about you, and forward into every relationship, every human interaction you have going forward.
100.
Huge.
100%. Yeah. And I want to say that one of the things that set me on the path
Yeah.
on this journey
Yes.
was, it was a breakup. It wasn't an abusive relationship or anything. It was just something that didn't work out, and I was kind of sad about it. And you know how we do? We decide we want to do something different. We want to change our hair, or whatever it is, right? Want to have a revenge body. I don't know, but I decided. True story. I decided I wanted to go to a pole dancing class
Mm.
because I'd always seen them, and I was like, you know what? That's such a full body exercise, right? And it's so cool. Like I used to call it gymnastics on a stick.
Right.
And so, but again, I was allowing other people's opinions of it to keep me from doing it. I'm like, oh, people are going to think I'm a stripper and blah, blah, blah. And, finally I was just like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care what people think about it. I want to try it. I tried it. I was really good at it. I was so good at it that they asked me if I wanted to teach.
Oh, wow.
I started teaching it. And the empowering part about it was not just the movements and everything. All of that was great. It was I was surrounded by all of these women who were so encouraging and so positive and so confident, regardless of their body type, regardless of their race, their age, their flexibility level, whatever. It was such a warm and encouraging, empowering community. But then
Mm.
on top of that, I was able to do things I didn't think I could do. I'm like, my little drumettes are able to keep me up on a pole upside down. I didn't know I could do that. Like, I didn't know I was that strong. And I asked myself, I remember very distinctly, what else can I do?
Mm.
What else can I do that I didn't think I could do?
Yeah.
That set me on the path. And for me personally, physical activity is the main thing that helps bolster my confidence, right? And
Okay.
so I went from pole to aerial arts, aerial acrobatics.
Yes.
Did that and was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was strong enough to be able to flip and climb up to the rafters, right? With these little things, like, you know, and and I always started with a default of I can't do it. I can't do it. That was my mom. My mom would always tell me I couldn't do it. My
Mm.
dad would always tell me, not only can you do it, but you better be perfect at it. So it was a very difficult fine line to be between those
Wow.
two forms of thought, right? So when
Yeah.
I'm trying these things, I'm thinking I can't do it. Then when I do it, I'm like, oh, what else can I do? So
Yeah.
from aerial acrobatics to Krav, got my black belt in that. I'm gonna try jujitsu and see how that goes.
Wow. And
So
what does this say to your little girl how do you take care of her? How do you talk to her now? What do you know about her? What would you tell your little girl today?
oh, you're gonna make me cry, Stacy. Um, I would think she's so happy to be back.
Mm.
She's really happy to be back because for such a long time it's been about survival mode,
Yes.
and now it's about living the life that I want to live and doing the things I want to do and proving to myself that I'm worthy, proving to myself that I'm smart, that I'm, strong. Um, and just doing those little acts, those physical, for me, those physical things, you do get confidence from doing those things. It comes from action, and empowerment often starts with self-trust.
Mm.
and I had to learn to trust myself. And a lot of survivors have to learn to trust themselves either from the beginning or to remember how to trust themselves. But our body remembers strength even when our mind doubts it.
Ooh, that's good.
So, yeah, I think she's happy to be back.
That's good. So you mentioned there's a little gap, and I just want, okay. It's
I'm
okay to
good.
have tears because
Mhm.
that shows the tenderness of your heart and you're tender to that little girl. Because if you saw a little girl crying on the street, what would you do? You'd run up to her and you'd give her a hug. Why would we do
Mhm.
any less? Why do we think we should do any less for ourselves?
Right.
So
Exactly.
the catalyst for your journey was the breakup by
Mhm.
way of any other aspects of how you started on your journey that you could share?
Um, that was the main thing that I could think of. I think at the time I was also working at a job that I really did not like. You know, being treated horribly, didn't really have very many options to be able to leave,
Mm,
like an abusive relationship.
right.
And so I did feel powerless in a lot of ways. I felt stuck. And so I had to find things to do that would give me joy. And one of the things that I coach on is having an emotional safety plan, right? Having those things that um, when times are good. You know what things that you like with, what music, what playlist you want. Um, and so that kind of started me on the path because I was just not happy and wanted to be happy. Knew it
Mention
was possible.
that's good. I know mentioning not happy when we talked earlier, you said something about some dealing with grief.
Mm, yes. So I, at the beginning of 2025, went through grief coaching. And it was a one-on-one session. I didn't go through it for the death of anyone. I went through it because of the end of another relationship that just didn't work out. Um, Again, it wasn't abusive or there was no cheating. It was nothing like that. It was just when you've been through all these abusive relationships or unhealthy relationships, and then you find somebody who's really a good person, and you connect and all that, attracted to each other, all the things, but it just doesn't work out. You're just not really compatible. That's
Mm,
hard to let go of. It's hard to let go of that feeling. And so I was having a hard time processing that loss, even though it had happened like a year before that we broke up.
mhm,
But I just kept holding on to it. And so I started that process of grief counseling. And she told me in the beginning that what you're coming here to grieve may not be what you end up grieving by the end. And
mm.
that was so true because we started off talking about, my ex-boyfriend, and 2, 3 weeks in, I'm like, okay, I'm good on him. Like, let me talk about my mama though. Because I felt like when she said that, she expressed that there are different forms of loss. And sometimes we are grieving who we thought people were,
Mm,
grieving the type of mother that we wished we would have had,
yes.
or the relationship that, the encouragement, all the things that you wanted from this person that you didn't get and that you may never get.
Right.
And so I wanted to go through that process because, um, I needed to have that because my mom is still with us. Uh, and when I say with us, I mean in my house. Um, and so I have to have, you know, I have to be able to have a good relationship with her, um, despite all the things that happened to my little girl that she was either aware of or didn't protect me from, or, all the things. Um, I want to be respectful to my mother. I want to be um, compassionate regarding what she went through and what her little girl has experienced, and recognize the seeds that were planted in her
Yes.
who passed on to me, right?
Yes.
And grief counseling helped me do all of that. And when I tell you that was one of the best forms of self-development that I have gone through, because it helped me process loss altogether overall so much better. And I
Mm,
experienced 3 deaths after having gone through that I processed it in a much more healthy way than I ever would have without grief counseling.
that's beautiful.
Thank you.
It talks what you talk of speaks of generational trauma, generational pains that are unwittingly, unintentionally passed down.
Mhm.
Always grateful when I see people able to look back and say, let me have compassion for my mother, because I don't know all the details of her story that created the scenario that we were in together,
Mhm.
where she wasn't able to protect you if, when, and if she knew the
Right.
details of what was going on.
Right.
And so that it doesn't cause you now to look at her as an older woman
Mhm.
needing you in her life, wanting you to be there to take care of her, that you're able to do that from a good place for yourself, because that's healthy also.
Right.
Or
Right.
the expectation of healthy relationships in general tied to
Right.
the work that you did. So thank you for sharing about grief counseling and acknowledging that grief is not just a death. We grieve
Right.
our dreams, we grieve our hopes, we grieve the things that we wanted to happen that didn't happen.
100%. Yeah.
So thank you.
Um, and and I love that you mentioned the generational trauma, and I'll give an example real quick. There was a training that I did on intergenerational trauma where they talked about the impact of abuse. They specifically used domestic abuse as an example, and they talked about a woman being in her 3rd trimester, and they
Mhm.
talked about the release of serotonin in the body and how, when a woman is in an abusive situation and you know that floods the body, that actually affects the development of the brain of the baby, in a way that they are not able to modulate fear or anger when they're born. And it's like, just to think about the fact that in his example, he talked about how that child may react to that abuser, just the sound of their voice, because mom's body taught me how to respond to that voice.
As soon as
That
they're born,
blows my mind.
as soon as they're born, they've not even seen this person. Woo.
I'm 2 years old, and how do we explain that? I've never seen this man before.
Wow, that gives me chills, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. It's
That,
so interesting.
whew, yeah, fearfully, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. I mean, it just continues
Absolutely.
to highlight and show the intentionality of these bodies that we carry the spirit in and walk into this world. So,
Right.
so grateful
Yeah.
for everything that you've shared. Ladies, if you're hearing this, men, if you're hearing this, you're not here by accident. This message is for you to be able to go back and find out who you are, to grieve those things that you didn't get that you wanted, things that didn't go the way that you anticipated that they would, hope that they would, needed them to, and to identify the seeds that were planted that distorted your perception of yourself, who you were, what you needed. This is intentional, to take that time now to seek the kind of therapy, the coaching, the mentorship, the friendships, even just to hold your hand and let you know you're okay, that you're loved, that you're safe, because that's the striving need of our little girl and our little boy. We want to know that we're safe and that we're loved. So you are,
Mhm.
and we encourage you, we pray that you will find your way. This is this is intentional by greater design, God's design for you. Thank you so much again, Oriana. Please follow Oriana on her podcast. Give them the name so they know exactly how to find you.
It is the Empowered and in Control podcast on YouTube, and it's a podcast that helps those who have been impacted by domestic abuse to heal and regain power and control after an abusive relationship.
If in this conversation You heard words that you've not been able to articulate, but you felt them. Maybe you can never give it a name. I just want to assure you, you are not alone. Healing that we talk about all the time begins with awareness, to even know, so that you can grow and get support. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, I invite you to listen to part 1. And this is in this part of the conversation, Oriana shared what the patterns were that planted the seeds that eventually took root. If this episode really made sense to you, and you know somebody else that needs to hear this, please let them know it's not because they're broken. It's because they are responding to what was put inside of them the only way they knew how. Thank you for joining, and be blessed. Thank you for watching Staci Speaks Hope. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. To schedule a free coaching call, the link is in the description.
Grown woman holding in story she needs to tell what God really wants you to do in this world. In his name, hope to break free from the shackles and the lies that have become your truth and put blinders on your eyes. You built walls around your heart. You have plugged up your ears. Get freedom to hope's what you need. It's in reach. Wipe your tears, little girl.